Be cool, be kind, be classy. The cupcakes are sweet and sexy. Have fun, enjoy the journey. Just have a good attorney. No big whoop, no biggie. She lives near New York City. Not just a YouTube show. When you know, you better grab a straw. Learn about the law. It's cool here in the shade, sipping motions and lemonade. Cool heads will prevail, kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Oh, Melanie Little is going live. Oh no, where is Melanie? Follow the island's melody. Is a concert within reach. No surprise, she's at Jones Beach. She heard some music far away. Captain Jack Stack Harbor Bay. He sings and his piano plays. Not all sounds are waterways. Speaking Yiddish and Latin, it's not just for Manhattan. It's for Goethe and Machegas. Ridiculous that insanus. Oy vey, Marcus. Proceed, that's for schmucks. Be cool, be kind, be classy. My cupcakes are sweet and sassy. Not just a YouTube show. When you know. Cool heads will prevail. Kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Melanie Little is going live.
Good morning. Good morning, my friends. Happy Wednesday. It's hump day. It's hump day, October 22nd, 2025. Good morning. You know, we've been in Massachusetts for so long that, sometimes we forget how much corruption there is in other states like Oklahoma, Arkansas. And I just put up another show for 11:30. So at 11:30, we're going to pivot over to the audacity of Massachusetts because there's a lot of things that have happened since yesterday. And so yesterday I was on Billy Bush in the morning, and then I was on Howie Carr around 3 o'clock. And so many things have happened since then with the audacity of Proctor and all of it. And so right now we're going to stay in Oklahoma, and then at 11:30, we're going to teleport over back to Massachusetts for the audacity of it all. But if you've been with me for a long time, you may remember that I started covering the case of Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley when they went missing. And that was back around Easter weekend of 2024. I don't even know if I can find my old notes, but yeah, that's when it was. They went missing, Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley. The Kansas moms, as we called them back then, were reported missing on March 30th of 2024. And I remember doing a live show, and that is when they were missing. And we connected with a woman whose handle is Rock Chalk. She was a viewer of mine. And she got in her trailer with her horses and her dogs, and she went down to the Oklahoma Panhandle to help look for Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley. Do you remember that? I need to actually link the playlist below because I don't know if I did that already, but I think I've already done at least 5 shows on it. But it's been a very long time since I've done a show, and I kind of got to figure out the best way to talk about it in the most gentle way, because this is one of the most gruesome cases I think that I've ever handled that doesn't involve children. It's horrific. In last December, a preliminary hearing was held in which 2 of the 5 people arrested with regard to the deaths of Veronica and Jilian were testified. And last night I was reading the testimony of Paul Grice from that preliminary hearing, and it is chilling. I saw the thing. I saw that. Oh, thank you, Michelle. I saw Michael Fossler's. It's the same victim. She just gave you a different interview. It's a new interview. I started to listen to it last night. I have not heard the whole thing. So do I have your permission to play the interview later if we do it on another show? Just let me know if it's okay, Michelle, to play parts of it. Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, Michelle's amazing. That's Arkansas. That's Arkansas. Because there's corruption everywhere, not just in Massachusetts. But the scary part about the Oklahoma Panhandle, as so many of you who live there and have written to me about the Oklahoma Panhandle, is that it's literally like there's a part of it, I think, that is called no man's land. And it really kind of is like no man's land. Like it's, in some ways, it's like lawlessness like you've never seen. If you thought Massachusetts was incestuous with regard to the law enforcement and the generational law enforcement and the power, what goes on in Oklahoma is scary. And I remember when Rock Chalk was down there, and I have live interviews with her. She called in many times, and she was in fear for her life a lot of the time. And it's scary. It's desolate there. And it was really scary. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit because Grandma Tifany Adams with one F took a plea, and she's going to be sentenced come January. So far, I think 3 of them have taken pleas, and I guess 2 of them are set to stand trial. January 28th, she's going to be sentenced. She pled no contest, as did this other kid, Jesse Butler. And that is a horrifying story. Thank you, Suzanne, for bringing that to my attention. I don't know if you're here today. But that's a horrifying story, too. This kid, Jesse Butler, 17 years old, the horrors that he inflicted upon other girls his age. And could it be? I'm aware, Aunt Bibi, but it's different. It's a different stream. So I know that there's people in here from Oklahoma. So are we having a problem so far? If we have a problem, just bring it to my attention and I'll take care of it. I mean, listen, there's always going to be trolls. We even have a troll emoji for that. But, I figured the people from Oklahoma should come in and be able to talk about it because they have a special interest in this case. And Suzanne tells me there's going to be a rally on November 5th about the Jesse Mack Butler case. I think his dad used to be a football coach at Oklahoma State, but I haven't been able to confirm that in any mainstream news. So if anybody has any information that they want to send me while we're going here, fanbase@mlittlelaw.com. If anybody knows anything about this rally that's supposed to happen on, I think it's November 5th, because the town is outraged. The parents are outraged. I'm outraged, and you're going to be outraged by it too. But so much of this is so gross that I have to tiptoe around it because you know that YouTube doesn't like all of the things that I talk about. And so the last stream that I did that had to do with Aaron Spencer was also unfriendly to advertisers. And so that one got the yellow dollar sign because, they don't like the topics that we have to talk about, but this is true crime. These are real crimes happening in real places with real corruption. And it's wild. So for those of you who were not following this case with me since the beginning, let me give you like a brief rundown about what it is, what happened. I think I even have the original missing poster for the women. Hold on. Going all the way back to April. Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley. And Veronica Butler was involved in a custody dispute, of course, a bitter custody dispute with a guy named Wrangler Rickman. And Wrangler's mother's name is Tifany Adams. She's the grandma. She's the ringleader. She's the mastermind. She's the mastermind behind this whole plot to take the life of the mother of her grandchildren because Veronica Butler was about to get custody. And Tifany Adams couldn't have it. And the son, Wrangler, I think at the time was in rehab. I'm not sure where he is now. Does anybody know where Wrangler is now? Veronica was the sweetest, says Bobby Socks. And at the time, all of the court documents were easy to get. And so I uncovered all of these things as we were learning that these women were missing about the custody dispute. We went over a lot of the documents in the prior streams. And they've all been sealed since then, so you can't get them. But I did go over them, and so they're in the prior streams in the playlist for Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley. And so here's what happened. On Easter weekend, which was March 30th of 2024, Veronica Butler, who had supervised visitation at the time, and her friend Jilian Kelley drove from Hugoton, Kansas to Oklahoma to do a child exchange. It was a custody exchange. And they went missing. No one ever heard from them again. The meeting point where they were supposed to pick up the children was a place called Four Corners. Brian Enton has done a lot of coverage on this, and he's done some really good coverage on this. He was boots on the ground down there in Oklahoma. And Four Corners is like, I remember we had pictures of it. It's like, imagine tumbleweeds and a lot of dust flying around and an intersection that is very desolate with like an old gas station, because I think that's pretty much all that was around Four Corners, right, you guys? So they went down there to do a custody exchange. There was another woman who was usually the supervisor of the custody exchanges, but she wasn't available. So Jilian Kelley, who was a woman, I think she was a pastor's wife, went with Veronica to do the custody exchange to meet Grandma Tifany Adams, who was supposed to give the children to Veronica so that Veronica could bring the children back for their supervised visitation for the weekend back to Kansas. And their car was found abandoned 2 days later on April 1st along Highway 95 near the Kansas-Oklahoma border. They did find some evidence at the scene, and I remember going over this in real time. There was blood at the scene. The Butler's glasses were found at the scene and a broken hammer. And so foul play was suspected. And that was on April 1st of 2024. On April 4th of 2024, that's when the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation took over the case. And the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation officials publicly expressed concern for the women's safety due to the length of time since their disappearance. There's only an old gas station in Four Corners. Thanks, Bobby Socks. I remember, because I remember we needed tumbleweed emoji. We had pictures. We did all the things. Unfortunately, I was later getting started today than I wanted to be. And so I didn't get a chance to pull up all of my old pictures and all the documents and stuff, but I'll just paint a picture for you with my words. Here's a picture of Veronica Butler and her fiance. Put that up for you in the meantime. Oh, please. Everyone should hit the like button. That would be so kind of you. I would really appreciate that. This is a picture of Veronica Butler and her fiance. The children are fine. I don't know where the children are right now. And so it wasn't until 2 weeks later, on April 14th of 2024, that authorities located two bodies buried in a freezer on the Beasley property. It was a rural property in Texas County, Oklahoma. And at the burial site, they also found a taser, tape, and a knife. And I also think that they found clothing as well. And it wasn't long that OSBI confirmed that the bodies were those of Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley. Four people were arrested and charged with murder, conspiracy, and kidnapping, including the grandmother, Tifany Adams with one F. And if you search up Oklahoma court records, she's got a lot of cases in Oklahoma throughout the years. Her boyfriend, Tad Cullum, a woman named Cora Twombly, and her husband, Cole Twombly. Investigators alleged at the time that the murders were premeditated because Tifany Adams had bought burner phones and tasers as part of the planning. And then 10 days later, April 24th of 2024, a fifth person was arrested, and his name is Paul Grice. And that's the testimony that I was reading last night from the preliminary hearing. And it's chilling and it's horrifying that the families of Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley were in the courtroom when this guy was testifying, and he really lays it all out there in great detail. So this might not be the stream for you. I'm just going to trigger it. There's a blanket trigger warning because the details of what happened to these women is horrific. And they're the details. So I kind of need to go over them. This may not be the one for you. If you got to sit this one out, I totally understand. You won't hurt my feelings, but you got to protect your mental health first because it is absolutely heartbreaking. And then a month later, on May 16th of 2024, a Texas County judge issued a gag order in the case due to widespread media coverage. By October 3rd of 2024, prosecutors filed additional charges against three suspects, Adams, Cullum, and Cole Twombly. And then the new charges included the unlawful desecration of remains and child neglect charges for Tifany Adams. The autopsy results came back on October 7th of 2024, revealing that it was a brutal end to both women's lives before they were placed in this freezer. Jilian Kelley's injuries included multiple wounds from, that thing you cut steak with. We learned we have to say that, like from the Ellen Greenberg case that my stream was taken down midstream. And by November 6th of 2024, medical examiners concluded that Jilian Kelley likely died from a spinal cord injury and that she lost her ability to breathe independently. I think I have a picture of Jilian as well. Let me just pull that up. It all depends on what I named the thing that I'm looking for to be able to find the thing that I'm looking for. And now I can't find it, but why can't I find the missing poster? In any event, prosecutors also allege that Tifany Adams was the mastermind of this whole thing, and that she's the one who orchestrated it because of the custody dispute between Veronica Butler. And I think at that time, Tifany Adams was also involved in the custody dispute because she had temporary custody because Wrangler, the son, was in jail. I mean, not in jail. I'm sorry. He was in rehab. And so allegedly he had nothing to do with it. And then in December, there were 2 days of preliminary hearings. And this guy, Paul Grice, testified at both of them. And it's pretty disgusting. Let's pull up some video from the beginning of the case for those of you who have not been following since the beginning. Just give me 2 seconds, please. Oh, hold on. They're not making it. Talk amongst yourselves for a second. They're not making it easy for me today. On the tubes of you. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll do it. I'll do it for you.
A panhandle.
Here's right when they first went missing.
Is found abandoned along a highway in Eggs is live with the latest on this investigation. Caitlin?
Jonathan and Tatum, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation says Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley haven't been heard from since Saturday. The OSBI says right now they don't have any suspects and no one has been taken into custody. The missing person alert that went out for Butler and Kelley says they were traveling together to pick up Butler's children, but they never arrived. Court records show Butler is in a custody dispute involving her 2 children. The OSBI believes the women were driving from Kansas to Oklahoma, and investigators hope both women will be found safe.
We are hopeful that they are still alive, but we're going to do everything in our power to track these 2 people down as quickly as we can.
Hunter McKee says the OSBI does not believe other people are in danger.
At this time, we do not believe that the public is in immediate danger. But again, we're trying to do everything that we can to talk to as many people in that area as we can.
Investigators say they've been getting a lot of tips from people and hope anyone who knows something or sees the women will contact the OSBI.
The public, the citizens have done a tremendous job of.
Did the sound just cut out on this thing? Sorry, guys. Let's try it again.
Across Oklahoma are searching tonight for 2 women who went missing out in the Oklahoma Panhandle 5 days ago.
The OSBI suspects foul play after the SUV the women were in was found abandoned along a highway in Texas County near the Kansas state line. News on 6's Caitlin Daggs is live with the latest on this investigation. Caitlin?
Jonathan and Tatum, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation says Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley haven't been heard from since Saturday. The OSBI says right now they don't have any suspects and no one has been taken into custody. The missing person alert that went out for Butler and Kelley says they were traveling together to pick up Butler's children, but they never arrived. Court records show Butler is in a custody dispute involving her 2 children. The OSBI believes the women were driving from Kansas to Oklahoma, and investigators hope both women will be found safe.
We are hopeful that they are still alive, but we're going to do everything in our power to track these 2 people down as quickly as we can.
Hunter McKee says the OSBI does not believe other people are in danger.
At this time, we do not believe that the public is in immediate danger. But again, we're trying to do everything that we can to talk to as many people in that area as we can.
Investigators say they've been getting a lot of tips from people and hope anyone who knows something or sees the women will contact the OSBI.
The public, the citizens in that area have done a tremendous job of reaching out to us. They are concerned. They want these women found. They want as many answers as possible, and we understand that.
If you have any information about the case that could help, call the OSBI at 1-800-522-8017. Caitlin Daggs, Oklahoma's Own, News on 6.
Yes, Jillian was the caseworker,
Firing the officer
but
recently
she was not the usual caseworker. Hang on.
Where a vehicle belonging to 2 missing Kansas women was recovered last month. News 9's Matt McCabe is live
Look how
outside.
these things automatically start. Let's start here. She was not the usual caseworker. She was the stand-in. In case the other caseworker was not available, she was the one who was supposed to go with Veronica, and she did. But when I tell you what Paul Grice testified to, you're going to find out that they knew that it was going to be Jilian, and they didn't really consider her important. She was just a witness.
Breaking tonight, 2 bodies have been recovered in rural Texas County, the same area where a vehicle belonging to 2 missing Kansas women was recovered last month. News 9's Matt McCabe is live outside OSBI headquarters. Matt, do investigators believe these are the remains of the 2 missing women?
Sylvia, well, investigators say that they found those 2 bodies in a rural area of Texas County today in the Oklahoma Panhandle. And as of right now, OSBI has not confirmed the identities of those victims that they found. And 27-year-old Veronica Butler and 39-year-old Jilian Kelley went missing on March 30th. The pair were coming from Kansas to visit Butler's children in Oklahoma. And on Saturday, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation.
If you're not looking at your screen and you're able to, because you're not on scaffolding or driving an 18-wheeler down the highway, or driving any vehicle, come look at your screen. This is the cast of characters who was arrested. The first 4 to be arrested. On the top right of your screen is Tifany Adams, the grandma. Upper left here is her boyfriend, Tad Cullum. Bottom right is Cora Twombly. And to the left of Cora is her husband, Cole Twombly. Sovereign citizens, but they had, a prayer group. They called it a prayer group. Motley crew indeed.
Investigation arrested 4 people on murder complaints. Tifany Adams, the paternal grandmother of Butler's children, was among those booked into the Texas County Jail. Authorities also arrested Tad Cullum, who is the grandmother's boyfriend, and Cora and Cole Twombly. Since the beginning, officials have said there was clear evidence of foul play.
As this investigation continued, our agents were able to determine that the abandoned vehicle that was found along that road had information that they were able to gather that showed signs that there was foul play.
And the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation has called a joint press conference for tomorrow morning with the FBI and the Texas County Sheriff's Office. So far, no other details about how or where exactly the bodies were found has been released. Reporting live outside of OSBI headquarters, Matt McCabe, Oklahoma Zone, News 9.
You may recall also in one of those prior streams, we went over the arrest affidavits and the probable cause affidavits and the testimony, and the details are horrific, but I'm going to summarize for you Paul Grice's testimony because he's really the one who's rolling over on everyone, because all of a sudden he feels bad about it or guilty, and he feels like he should take his punishment from God, and he wants the families to have some closure. And the first preliminary hearing was held on December 17th of 2024. And this is in Texas County, Oklahoma. And this is the testimony of the 5th person who was arrested. His name is Paul Grice. No, he didn't say his name is Matt. I remember when the OSBI did that. When the OSBI did that presser, I really liked that guy who did the presser. He was very, very well spoken and a good spokesperson for the OSBI. And props to them, because they had this case solved pretty much within 14 days, right? So Paul Grice took the stand, and he was asked how he knew the co-defendants, and he said he knew Cora Twombly from the time that he was a little kid, and then he moved back to Oklahoma in 2023, and he got reacquainted with her and started meeting with the other co-defendants, Tad Cullum, Tifany Adams, Cole and Cora Twombly, at Cole and Cora's house. And at first they had this kind of prayer meeting. That's how it started out, like just friends hanging out. And it turned into kind of a prayer meeting. And he said they started having it twice a week, once on Sunday and once on Wednesday. And everyone was invited. And a lot of kids came to the meetings too. But there were probably about 15 adults that would come to these meetings regularly. And it was before Christmas of 2023 when they started meeting all together, he said. Then he was asked if the group had a political side to it. And he said, it did. And he said, we were looking at information called American State and National. And that, to my knowledge, is an organization that teaches people or promotes sovereign citizenship or sovereign citizenry. And according to him, he said it was a form of freedom that was kind of an anti-government type thing. And that he would go to these conferences that were run by this guy. I think his name is David Straight, but we're going to get to that. So they went to, yeah, David Straight. He says he saw this guy, David Straight, who I guess is the head of this movement, speak a couple of times, and he was, into it. And he was asked, as far as this belief system goes, were there things that you needed to do to become a full-blown state nationalist? And he said, yes, a long process, filing papers and things through the courthouse. Some of them filed papers, some of them didn't. And he was asked, in your opinion, did you become a full-blown state nationalist, or was there other things left? And he said, I still had other things to do. He said Tifany Adams would also often bring her grandchildren, a boy and a girl, to the meetings, and he knew their names, and he knew her kids used to play. I mean, her grandkids used to play with his kids, and that Tifany Adams made up a story that the children were being SA'd by Veronica's brother. And she went into great detail about it. And she from the testimony, it sounds like she kind of brainwashed Paul Grice into believing that these children were being horrifically abused. And she said she had proof of it. And she had a video of an admission by Veronica's brother. But he never saw the video. And the details of it are horrible, and I'm not going to repeat them to you. The details that Paul Grice was told by Tifany Adams. And Tad also told him this story because they were, I guess, grooming him to be part of their criminal act. And Tad also said that the children were being SA'd by Veronica's brother, and that he had proof too. He had a 26-page document, and that he kept it in a safe at his mother's house. But again, Paul Grice never asked to see it, and it was never shown to him. He was asked how many times they brought it up about this going on, and he said, it came up so many times I'm having trouble remembering exactly how they would bring it up. But usually it was one-on-one, kind of quiet. And then he was asked whether Tifany ever came to him and told him that she was having problems with the custody situation. And he said, yeah, twice. He said, I think, one of them was in February, one of them was in early March. And she specifically said that there were several incidents that happened with her son Wrangler and the kids. He said, I couldn't remember exactly what they were, but they were in a bad environment. That was a drug-related environment. And she was just always painting a bad picture of the mothering ability of Veronica, parenting abilities in general between Wrangler and Veronica both. And then he says, after the first talk in February, she point blank asked him if he would take Veronica's life at the first meeting in February of 2024. And he was asked, what was your response? And Grice said, I told her I would think about it. I had let her story create a lot of bitterness and hatred in me, and I didn't have any proof of it, and it was my fault. He was asked if Tifany ever brought up the Bible in an effort to try and justify or to get you to help her. And he said yes, that she would bring up certain Bible verses. And he says, yeah, that's what their intent was. But looking back on it now, it was taken out of context and twisted. It was deceiving, and I fell for it. And then he was asked by the prosecutor during the preliminary hearing, he said, do you have an opinion as to why Tifany came to you for help? And he said, she told me during our talk that she thought I had the fortitude to do it. She knew that I had a bad upbringing myself, that I had an abusive dad, verbally and physically. And I talked about bad memories from time to time, things that I had been through. I think she knew I had enough hate in my heart to get it done. Prosecutor asked, now, did you ever give her the impression that you were this kind of guy? That, you know, you do things like this? And when I speak of things like this, I mean, you know, like take people's lives. And he said, yeah, I told her that, you know, if somebody ever did this to my kids, that I would absolutely take their life. And then I told her a whole bunch of lies, because I told her and the other people in the group that I had done it before, that I had taken other people's lives. And I told them that I was part of a mercenary group that helped protect children and set things straight. And then he said, but I really haven't. It was all a lie. And he was asked, well, what made you make up that lie? And he said, stupidity, too much drinking. Prosecutor asked him, and that lie, that's something that you told the whole group? And he said, I would talk about it pretty often, not in front of the little kids, but yeah, you know, I'd get drunk and talk about it with the adults. Prosecutor said, completely untrue? And he says, yes, untrue, every bit of it. Here's the problem. He's admitting that he's a liar, right? But it's okay, because he buried Tifany enough to get her to take a plea. So let's get through this, because I know it's hard. And then he said, okay, well, that was the first time she brought it up. What was the second time that she ever brought it up? And then he said, I really can't remember the date. I think it was early March. She came to me and she told me that Veronica was going to be getting full custody of the children and that she didn't have the money to fight Veronica in court anymore. And again, she was just telling me how awful a place it was, and the kids didn't want to go to her house. And the list went on and the negativity about Veronica from Tifany. Yeah, drunk prayer group, David. That's exactly it. And that's when I agreed that I would help her take her life. That meeting took place at his house. And he said, would Tifany bring the kids with her? And he said, yeah, she would bring the kids with her, and her kids and my kids would play together. And then the second time he spoke to Tifany, Tifany told him that Tad and Cora had agreed to help. Then he was asked, did she explain to you the situation? At this point, did she explain to you the situation with regard to there being a supervisor who would also have to be taken out? And he said, yes. What was your response to that? He said, I told her I would help take Veronica's life, but I didn't want to do it to anybody else. I didn't want to have to do anything else to anybody else. Did she explain who this other person was that would be there that day? And Paul Grice's answer was, her exact words to me was, it's a nobody. Imagine Jilian Kelley's family sitting in the courtroom listening to this monster tell these horrific details about their wife, their daughter. Did she try to justify the taking of the life of the supervisor to you in any way? She said it was a witness. That's all she said. And at this point, did she have any plan? And he said they started working on a plan. So this thing was meticulously planned. That the four of them would just go out, you know, they would go outside and they would talk about it together. Tifany bought tasers and burner phones, and he didn't know the actual plan of how they were going to do it until about a week before the actual crime. They all got in Cora's pickup and they went to the location of where they were going to do this. And they went over the plan one day in the early morning. And the plan was, Tifany said she was going to have a pickup and a trailer with a freezer in it. And she would come up with a way to lure the women to the trailer. She told me that my job was to take care of Veronica and that Tad would handle the supervisor, Jilian. And that Tad had a place that he was going to bury the bodies and the evidence. And it was supposed to take place at the corner of Road L and Highway 95, inside the trailer. What was Tifany's job? Tifany's job was to lure Veronica into the trailer. And Tad's job, when he was asked what Tad's job was supposed to be, Paul Grice said, I was under the impression that Tad was supposed to take Jillian's life because that's what Tifany told me. Okay, what was Cora's job? Cora was in Elkhart that morning, the morning of the crime, and she followed them to the location. She followed Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley to make sure that they weren't being followed. And Cora was grabbing their phones and destroying their phones. Tifany also brought up the subject of tasers and stun guns. Stun guns, tasers are stun guns. And her thought process with regard to that, Paul said, she said that hopefully this would help us immobilize them. And if they didn't get in the trailer, it was so we could immobilize them to get them in the trailer if they wouldn't go there willfully. He says that he had concerns about that because what if it didn't work? What if things went south? And then he was asked, how did the use of hammers come about? And he said, I think the hammer was more my idea. I was thinking if you could knock them in the head and knock them out, it would make things easier, but obviously that didn't work. He was asked, did you have a conversation with Tifany about how she wanted this to happen? He said, I did. I had asked her if there was a certain way she wanted it done. She told me it didn't matter. He was asked, did the use of guns ever come about? He said, Tad and I kind of talked about guns a little bit, but I didn't really want things to be loud and drawing attention to ourselves in case of who might be around. The use of a freezer, whose idea was that? Tad's. And what about the ratchet straps? I've never heard of a ratchet strap before, but it's an interesting term. I think it's straps that used to tie up bales of hay. And he said that must have been Tad or Tifany. I'm not sure. Tifany told me she got them, which I thought was a good idea, but I don't know who originally came up with the idea. And then they get into Tifany purchasing them. What about the burial site, he was asked. Tad told me, I think it was a week before the crime actually happened, that he had a place picked out, but I was unsure of where it was until the morning of. He said, I didn't learn that Cole was going to be involved until the night before. Maybe that's why Cole hasn't taken a plea. What was your understanding of what Cole's role was? He said Cole was going to be at the four corners as a lookout. A ratchet strap is used to tie down cargo for transport. Oh, like a bungee cord? Like a bungee cord? Happy Camper says ratchet straps hold loads on trucks. Hold the freezer shut. Okay, got it. Secure loads on open trucks, says Mitchell. And Litzy says there's the straps that are used on trucks that crank down to hold in items in the truck bed more securely. You guys are so collaborative here. And then he was asked more about Cole's role, and he said, other than bringing Tad's pickup with a hay bale down to the location of the burial, no. And then they moved to the day that the women's lives were taken. Paul Grice testified he started the day at his house. He was really nervous that morning, so he woke up wicked early, like 3 o'clock, maybe even earlier than that. He said, my mind wasn't right. I was up early. I watched the sun come up. He was asked, did you meet with any other group at your house that morning? He said, Cole and Cora came to my house that morning around 8:15, 8:20 a.m. That he and Cole went to Tifany's house from there, and that Cora left to go to Elkhart. When they got to Tifany's house, they hooked up Clint's flatbed pickup to Tifany's trailer. Him and Cole. Then Tifany and Paul Grice left and headed east. And Cole left to go to the lookout point at Four Corners. They went through the clothing that he was wearing: Wrangler jeans, leather shoes, black hoodie, and a wool tan coat or jacket. And later on, he's shown pictures of the clothing because they all took off their clothing and threw it into the burial site with the freezer. And the hoodie that he was wearing happened to be an American State Nationalist hoodie, a David Straight hoodie that he got at one of the conferences that he went to. Did you bring anything else with you? Tools or weapons? He said, I had a hammer. The knife was at the scene. And I had a pistol on me also. Can you describe the hammer? It was an old, crusty ball-peen hammer. What kind of gun did you carry? It's a 1911 .45. What about the stun gun? Did you bring that with you as well? He said, Tifany had given it to me, but I forgot it that morning. I left it at my house, so she gave me another one out of her pickup that morning because Tifany apparently was prepared. So at some point along the road, they pick up Tad. And he had a field there. And I think he leased the field from this guy named Beasley. And that's why it was referred to as the Beasley property. He was asked what his role was going to be on the way over. And Tifany said that I would be staying in the trailer. She didn't want a stranger being seen for fear that maybe the women wouldn't come out of the car or whatever. I was supposed to take Veronica's life. He used the K word, but I can't say the K word. I'm probably getting stricken on this anyway, but it doesn't matter. You guys need to hear this. On the drive over, did Tifany receive any phone calls? And he said, yeah, she did. She talked to Cora a couple of times and she talked to Veronica a couple of times. How do you know she was talking to Veronica? And then he said, because I heard her say Veronica's name. And he was using a burner phone that Tifany had given him. He said, where was your phone? And Grice said, oh, I left my phone in Tad's pickup because I didn't want my phone pinging its location. And the criminals are just getting smarter. When they got there, it's about a 24-foot trailer, they said, or he said. Paul said it's a 24-foot trailer, 24-foot stock trailer, Hot Shot brand, I believe, white solid top, had 2 air slats on both sides and a door on the west side of the trailer. And that's how he got into the trailer. He was told by Tifany to get into the trailer, so he got into the trailer. Through the side door. And he was asked, and once you're in the trailer, what did you do then? He said, losing my mind mostly. I was scared. When you get in the trailer, what do you see? He said, I could see the freezer in the back and the ratchet straps under it. The ratchet straps were brand new. 2.5 inch hay straps is what I call them, he says. They were yellow. He was asked, are you able to see what's going on outside the trailer? And he says, through the slats, I could see out, but I was crouched down. I didn't really see anybody pull in or anything. Tifany told them that Cole and Kendall, oh, I'm sorry, those are the kids' names, were in the trailer with a baby calf that they wanted to show their mom. Prosecutor says, okay, that's what you heard Tifany say? And he said, yes. So Tifany told Veronica that the children were in the back of the trailer with a baby calf and they wanted her to see the baby calf. You didn't see the vehicle pull up? And he said, I heard it. I didn't see it. He said at that time he was standing right by the side door on the front of the trailer, and that in his hands he was holding the hammer in his right hand and the taser in his left hand. He was asked, could you see? Where did you see or could you hear where Tifany was at this point? He said, I couldn't see her, but I could hear her and I saw her walking. She walked towards the vehicle when the vehicle pulled in, and Tad was kind of hanging around in the right side of the trailer there between the side door and the axles, kind of. What did you see next? Next thing I saw was Tifany walk past the door and Veronica was right behind her. Okay, what happened next? Veronica leaned in the side door of the trailer. That's when I attacked her. And how did you do that? He said, I tried to shock her with the taser, hit her with the hammer a couple of times. No, the children were not there, actually, Michelle. The children were not there. That was just a lie to try and get Veronica to go into the trailer so that Paul Grice could complete his job. He was asked, which did you do first, the taser or the hammer? He said, honestly, I don't remember. What happened after you attacked? He says, she started moving to the west away from the trailer. I came out of the trailer, hit her again with the hammer. That's when it broke. No, the children were not there. The children were not there. That was a lie. He was asked, when you're hitting her, where are you hitting her at? He said, right side of the head, on the top of the head mostly. So she runs and you chase? I chased her, got up behind her, and I tried to shock her again with the taser. I think I ended up hitting myself instead of her. I think my right arm went numb. I couldn't feel anything in my right hand. And right after that is when I tackled her. So this all happened outside the trailer in the parking lot around, I don't know, 9 o'clock in the morning. It's amazing to me that no one drove by, but this was a very, very desolate area. At some point, did the hammer break? He said, yeah, it broke the first time I hit her as soon as I got out of the trailer, and like the third time I hit her. First time you hit her outside the trailer, it broke? Yes. Which would be the third time in total? Yes, sir. Twice inside the trailer, and once when I got out. You said you tackled her. Where did that happen at? He said, right in front of her car, right between the car and the back of the trailer. Now, during all this break, could you see where Tad was? And said Tad and Tifany were grabbing Jilian. They were right there against the passenger side of the trailer. Both women, he said, did you hear anything? Both women were screaming bloody murder at that point. And I heard like a fainting scream and a gasp from Jilian. Now, going back to when you tackled Veronica, what happened next? He said, in the heat of the moment, I didn't know what to do. That's when I pulled out my thing that you cut steak with and started, let's say, poking her with it. But you know what I'm trying to say. Where did you do that? And he said, I was trying to get her throat. I don't know where all I got her. She was fighting me. I was so scared. I don't know where all I got her, to be honest. Did you ask for anyone to help you? He said, at some point during the struggle, I cut my hand open. I couldn't feel it. My fingers were just flopping around. And I started yelling at Cora because she was right there by the car, getting the phones and things out of the car. I was yelling at Cora, trying to get help just out of pure scaredness and pain. Did Tifany ever come over while you had Veronica on the ground? He says she did. After her and Tad had loaded Jilian into the trailer, Tifany came and walked a big circle around us. He said, go back. How do you know that they loaded Jilian into the trailer? He said, well, that's just an assumption because after I took Veronica's life and we got her loaded in the trailer, in the back door of the trailer, I went and got in the front door of the trailer, and that's when I saw Jilian in the trailer. So I don't really know who did it, but they were the only two over there, so it had to be them. And then this might be the shock, I mean, if all this testimony hasn't been shocking to you so far, this might be the most shocking part. Going back to Tifany coming over there while you have Veronica on the ground, what is Tifany doing? And Paul Grice says, walking a circle around us, laughing. It was the most evil laugh I ever heard. And then the prosecutor says, actually it's a female, Ms. Miskell says, maybe we approach, Your Honor? And the judge says, you may. And then they approach. There must have been some kind of outburst because here's what the judge said after the sidebar. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, this is an American courtroom and these defendants are entitled to due process of law as is the state of Oklahoma. The court is well aware that this is emotional testimony and certainly emotions are not unexpected. We are nearing the end of a long day, and Mr. Smith is going to finish up his direct examination, and then we will be in recess until tomorrow morning at 9. Okay, so the prosecutor is a male, and I guess the defense attorney is female. However, there were no cameras in the courtroom for this. The judge goes on to say, if you don't think that you can control these emotions until afternoon, if you don't think you control your emotions this afternoon for the rest of this proceeding, then let me know at this time and you'll be escorted out by law enforcement and you can return in the morning. I don't know if anybody in the chat was boots on the ground in the courtroom, but I can't even imagine that the family must have been going nuts, that this horrific monster was walking around Veronica, her body, with the most evil laugh this man had ever heard. At some point, did you realize that Veronica was gone? He says, yes. She quit fighting me. She quit breathing. She quit blinking. You could see the life was gone. What happened next? That's when Tad came walking over from the trailer. Tifany got in the pickup and trailer and backed it up closer to the body so we could load it easier into the back. And Tad and I loaded her in the back of the trailer up by the freezer. And he said, could you describe how you guys loaded her? The freezer was just, we had to push the freezer up a little bit to make room. And I can't remember what side she was laying on. I think she was laying on her left side with the head towards the passenger side of the trailer right against the freezer. Tad lifted her head. I lifted her legs. We just sat her on the back. We didn't go in the trailer at that point. We just sat her on the back. After that, what did you do next? I went around the side door and I don't know what I was thinking, but I got in the trailer at that point through the side door. Now, were you doing that because of your finger being bloody? He said, yeah, I don't know what I was worried about. My blood being at the scene. I don't think it mattered. There was blood everywhere. Once you got in the trailer, what happened next? Somebody shut the door on me. Do you know who? I don't know who shut it. And the next thing I know, we were leaving. I could see Tifany was in the passenger side and Cora was in her pickup. They were driving behind us for a ways. That's when we left and we went to the burial site. Now, before you left, after you got in the trailer, did you communicate with Cora at all? He said, yeah, I told her I cut my hand open and she pops the roll of tape down for me to try to bandage my hand up with duct tape. And then, and this is very gruesome too, when you get in the trailer, did you see Jilian? Yes. What did you notice about her? At first, I didn't notice anything. She was still motionless. After we got down the road a little ways is when I started noticing that her eyes were fluttering. She was still alive. Grice goes on to say, and in between the bumps in the road and everything, you know, the trailer bouncing, flying down the road, I couldn't tell if she was breathing or not. I tried checking her for a pulse. Touched her throat and her wrist to get a response, trying to find out if she was alive or dead. I got no response. And between my nerves being so chaotic and the bouncing of the road, I couldn't tell if she was breathing or not. What did you do? He said, at first I didn't do anything. I was still trying to get my bleeding stopped. I was freaking out, kind of started getting the feeling that I'd been set up. What do you mean by that? I didn't really have any proof of it. I still don't, but I just felt like I was the only one with blood on my hands. He says, so you say set up, you mean you were set up to take the lives of both ladies? And he said, yes, sir. What did you do next? He says, I started to reason in my mind. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I started thinking about putting the bodies in the freezer and not knowing for sure if Jilian was dead or not. And I started having a panic attack about how scared she would have been if she woke up in the freezer alive still. That's when I decided that I would, you know, do the thing with the thing that you cut steak with and, you know, do that to her in the side of the neck too. Right in the side of the neck. And he said, how many times? I don't know. I thought it was like maybe 2 or 3 at the most, but I don't really know. Did you try to put her in the freezer after that? And he said, well, I grabbed her and I dragged her over to the freezer, but I didn't really, you know, try to lift her or nothing. Then the prize, he's asked about the feeling that he was set up. What do you have any proof that you were set up? What do you mean by that? He said, did you do anything later to try and confirm or deny that you were set up? And he said, yes. And he said, what'd you do? He said, I lied again to Tad and Cora, I think. I lied about it. I told them, all three of them, the same story. I told them that Jilian had woke up and that she attacked, trying to take my weapon, the pew. And I lied because I wanted to see their response to see if they had anything to say and to know if they tried to take her life or not. What was Tad's response? Tad told me that that was more credit than what he gave her because she didn't give him no fight. What was Cora's response? Cora was shocked. She didn't really have anything to say, just a bunch of cuss words. Same thing for Cole. Did you also tell the story to Tifany? To be honest, I can't remember if I did or not. I probably did. I don't remember. Then about a week later, they had a conversation about it because now at this point, I guess Paul Grice was concerned that he doesn't know if he was the one to take Jillian's life or not because he wasn't supposed to. And the five of them were outside somewhere at one of their prayer meetings having a conversation. And it got brought up somewhere. And he said, and Tad told me that he tried to break her neck. But Tifany said that she was at a weird angle to get a good break. At some point, the vehicle stopped and they got to the property where they were going to bury the remains. And apparently at that time, he was still so scared about what he had done and what they had all done. Ted opened the trailer gate and Paul Grice pulled his gun on Tad because he didn't know who it was opening the gate. What was his reaction? He was pretty scared with a .45 looking down his nose. What happened next? He asked me if I'd drive the pickup down to the burial site, and he was bringing the skid steer. So Tad gets the skid steer. Paul Grice drives the pickup truck down by the dam on the pond, and there was a big dirt pile down there. That's where he drove to. Once he got there, they took Veronica's body out of the trailer. Tad was changing the implements on the skid steer. He put the forks on and got the freezer out. At that point, him and I both lifted Jillian up and put her in the freezer first. They tried to pick up Veronica. They couldn't pick up Veronica. They tried to put a rope around her to have something to hold on to. That didn't work either. Tad ended up putting the bucket back on the skid steer and scooping her up with the bucket to put her in the freezer. And these details are horrific. I don't even know if any of the mainstream media really, other than Brian Enton, reported on them, but I have the transcript. It is. This is out of a movie. This is like Deliverance. After they got them both into the freezer, they put the ratchet straps around it. And that's when they put the freezer in the hole with the skid steer. And that's when Tad came back and told Paul to strip his clothes off. Both of us stripped all of our clothes off. Cole had gotten there at that point with Tad's pickup and a hay bale. And Cole was actually the one that threw the pile of clothes in the freezer. So they took off all of their clothes. And could you picture them standing there naked with a skid steer and a big pile of dirt? Well, I guess it was three of them because it was Tad, Cole, and Paul Grice. So Cole threw all the holes in the clothes in the hole. The only thing he had left on, Paul Grice, was his socks. And after that, he was just sitting on the ground by the back of Tad's pickup, and Tad was in the skid steer, filling the hole with dirt and concrete and everything. And he just sat there and watched. A couple of days later, he went over to Cole's house, and him and Cole cleaned and power washed the trailer out there on his farm. Then he was showing a bunch of photos, the burial place, all the things they found in the hole, the clothing, the knife. And what a horrific day of testimony that was. He was cross-examined the next day. And it was brought out that as a result of him testifying, the death penalty was going to be taken off the table, because there is death penalty in Oklahoma. But he didn't, he had no idea what he was going to be sentenced to. He didn't realize it could be life without parole. He said he wasn't really sure. Nobody ever told him that. And then on cross, he was asked if he saw the medical examiner's report, and the medical examiners, he was told, did you know that the medical examiner counted 30 wounds on Veronica and 16 on Jilian? Yeah, remember how we were all relying on rock chalk boots on the ground to give us updates? Says Yucca Valley Nan, I do. He said, yeah, they told me that. Yeah, I knew that. And on cross, he was asked, you said you testified that you only stabbed her a few times, correct? And he said, to what I remember. And then they went over some inconsistencies in his testimony, but talked about him being a liar and perjuring himself in other proceedings and during his statements. And, he was asked, is it your hope that you're going to get out of prison someday? He said, I guess everybody has hope, but in all honesty, I know I did wrong. I accept whatever punishment that is given me. The attorney said, except the death penalty, right? And he says, I would prefer not the death penalty, but I did wrong, and I have to own up to what God says is right, whether that be through the law or God's punishment himself. And the attorney said, so hand to God, today's the day you're actually telling the truth, right? And he said, yesterday and today, because this preliminary hearing went on for 2 days. And so there was some more testimony after that, but I think I've given you all of the horrific, pertinent parts. And as you can see, his testimony basically buries, excuse the pun, Tifany Adams. And so therefore, Tifany Adams did take a plea deal. Let's take a look at that. In Oklahoma, a defendant is allowed to take a plea of no contest. We don't allow that here in New York. A no contest plea is a plea where basically the defendant does not admit guilt, but admits or acknowledges that the prosecution has enough evidence to convict them. And so they are still sentenced as if they were convicted or pled guilty, but they're just allowed to say no contest without admitting guilt. And I don't really get it because we don't do it here in New York, but you're not admitting to the crime itself, but you're accepting the outcome. And the reason that they did that, or the reason that she took it, is because they took the death penalty off the table for her. And it really boggles my mind, because these people that commit these horrific acts are really afraid of the DP. Like, why? Why would they be afraid of that when they're not afraid to do such gruesome deeds, I don't get it. But here's what she signed off on, and it's basically just a form. And this was signed on It was filed on October 14th. Let's take a look. Here it is. Tifany Machel. Tifany with one F, and Machel is spelled Machel Adams. She's born in October 1969. Guyman, Oklahoma. And here's her felony plea, no contest. One sec. This is a form. Findings of fact, acceptance of plea, and there's a number of yes and no questions. Is the name just read to you your true name? Yes. She's 55 years old. That's a rough 55. She has a bachelor's degree. She has a lawyer. Not taking any medications, no medications. She's been in jail this whole time. Do you understand the nature and consequences of this proceeding? Yes. Does the state move to dismiss or amend any cases or counts in the information on page 2? So pursuant to the plea agreement, the state dismissed 3 counts against her. We'll go over what they are. She pled no contest to the rest, and she's going to come back for sentencing at the end of January. She's pleading guilty to murder in the first degree. And it says here, do you understand that if you plead guilty to this, well, it's actually no contest, because in the other areas, well, at the top of the form, see, it says felony plea of guilty. They crossed off guilty and they wrote no contest. So in Oklahoma, if you're found guilty of murder in the first degree, you will be required to serve a minimum sentence of 85% of the sentence of imprisonment imposed before being eligible for parole consideration, and you're not eligible for earned or other types of credits, which will have the effect of reducing the length of sentence to less than 85% of the sentence imposed. So for all of these charges, she entered a plea of no contest, 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of unlawful removal of a dead body, 2 counts of desecration of a human corpse, and a couple of the charges were dismissed. January 28th, 2026, she has to return for sentencing. And here's the guidelines for charged crimes in Oklahoma. Murder in the first degree with deliberate intent is a minimum of life to a maximum of life without the possibility of parole or death. But they took the death penalty off the table. The state moved to dismiss 1 conspiracy charge, 2 counts of unlawful removal of a dead body. No, I'm sorry. The state moves to dismiss the conspiracy charge, the child neglect charge, and another child neglect charge. So 3 charges. And in exchange for a plea of no contest, the state of Oklahoma agreed that it will not file a bill of particulars or seek the death penalty in this case. Seems that she knew that they had her dead to rights, as they say. And here is the local. I like to go to the local stations for my coverage because they have so much more of a vested interest in these cases. This is KSN TV, and this is from the other day from the plea.
KSN News 3 at noon.
We are tracking breaking news at this hour. The alleged mastermind behind the murders of 2 Southwest Kansas mothers enters a plea in the case. Tifany Adams pleaded no contest to 2 counts each of deliberate and intentional first degree.
Is that a rough 55 or what? Yikes.
Murder, unlawful removal of a dead body, and unlawful desecration of a human corpse. A no contest plea means Adams is not admitting guilt, but she's also not fighting the charges. Prosecutors say Adams had the mother of her grandchildren, Veronica Butler, and a court-appointed supervisor, Jilian Kelley, killed during what Veronica and Jilian thought was a child custody exchange during Easter weekend back in 2024. Documents show the women were stabbed multiple times. Their bodies were dumped in a deep freeze and buried in Texas County, Oklahoma. They weren't dug up for several days. Adams will be sentenced January 28th. Adams' plea comes just 3 weeks before she was set to be arraigned on the charges, but co-defendants Tad Cullum and Cole Twombly
Get a look at this. Get a look at these guys. Come back to your screen for a second. This is her boyfriend, Tad. I don't know how old he is, but I think he's around the same age, around 55 also. Rough, man. Let's take a look.
8th. Adams' plea comes just 3 weeks before she was set to be arraigned on the charges, but co-defendants Tad Cullum and Cole Twombly are still set to be in court November 5th and enter pleas. As a reminder, there are 5 people in total charged with killing Veronica and Jilian. Cora Twombly and Paul Grice took plea deals in exchange for their testimony against the other suspects.
Yikes. Here's a KOCO TV. Same day as the plea.
Tifany Adams has pleaded no contest to 6 of the 9 charges against her in the murder of her grandchildren's mother, Veronica Butler, and Jilian Kelley. Adams is in custody in Texas County and was accused of orchestrating a plot to kill Butler along with 4 other suspects.
Tifany's thing was she hated Veronica. She wanted her out of her life. She wanted her gone so that she could raise her grandchildren. And the only way to do that was to eliminate her.
Since the spring of 2024, we've stayed in touch with Veronica's aunt, LaDonna Thompson. The new court documents say Adams will be spared the death penalty, saying, quote, in exchange for the defendant's plea of no contest, the state of Oklahoma agrees that it will not file a bill of particulars or seek the death penalty in this case. Those 6 charges include the first-degree murder and desecration of a corpse charges and the deaths of Veronica and Jilian.
Jilian was just along for the ride when they were headed to pick up the children for a birthday party.
The 2 women were traveling together from Hugoton, Kansas to pick up Butler's children when they went missing in Texas County here in Oklahoma. They were reported missing March 30th of 2024, and they were found buried 2 weeks later.
She's loved, and she will never be forgotten. And that's just what we say. She's very loved and never forgotten.
As part of the plea agreement, the state will drop 3 charges against Tifany Adams, 2 for child neglect and 1 for conspiracy. She could still face life in prison without the possibility of parole. Her sentencing is now scheduled for January 28th. In OKC, Jason Berger, KOCO 5 News.
Horrific. One of the most gruesome cases I think we've ever covered together. Horrific. Thanks, Aida, for becoming a member. And thank you, JoJo, for thanking me and for hanging out with me for 3 months. And JoJo says, why do they keep giving out plea deals despite the severity of the crime? Well, because that way the family doesn't have to go through the trauma of a trial and hearing all of these horrific things yet again. And the defendant gets the death penalty taken off the table. It's also much more expensive for the state to go through all of the appeals processes that are guaranteed under the Constitution for someone who's facing the death penalty. And so the state wins and the family wins. And I think that's why. Thanks, Janine, for becoming a member. I think you're going to like it here on top. Thank you for your super sticker. And Beagle Rescue Mom says, thank you for all you do. I love how you handle even difficult topics with class. We got to do much more than believe if we want to see the world change. Yeah. We're just waiting on the world to change. Thank you for your 10 on top. Thank you for your super sticker. Mo Hippie. Show me says Wrangler is trying to get his children back. He was supposed to go to court. Rockshock was discussing that a while back. Not sure if he's got them at this time, though. Yeah, I don't know either. I haven't kept up with this case, sadly, because we were sidetracked on so many other live trials that we were handling at the time. And it is a horrific story. But that's not all that's going on in Oklahoma. Hang on to your hats. There's a kid in Stillwater, Oklahoma. His name is Jesse Mack Butler. And he committed some horrific crimes when he was 17 years old against some other girls in the high school. And we're going to talk about him, but I'm going to trigger warn you right now. This may not be something that you can handle, although I'm going to try and talk about it in the most gentle way that I can. This kid, Jesse Butler, a lot of people are outraged. The community is absolutely outraged by this. He too pled no contest. That's why the thumbnail says Oklahoma horror story, no contest, because this is there's a no contest plea. So he doesn't have to admit guilt, but he's essentially admitting guilt, and he's going to be sentenced by a judge. Jesse Butler, 17, pled no contest to several counts of grape. We have to say on grape on YouTube, and strangulation, only to be sentenced to, wait for it, a year of counseling with no jail time. I'm sorry, what? His victims were two other girls that he was like dating. And both of these girls reported that he essayed them repeatedly without consent, forcefully, and threatened to hurt them if they told anybody. In fact, one of them, not only was she strangled by him, but the doctor said she was 30 seconds away from dying. Somebody's got to look into that judge, says Emmy. Let me sit through this commercial so that you can hear it directly from News 9. The community is absolutely outraged. I'm outraged. You will be outraged when you hear this. And does anybody have confirmation that his dad at one time, his name is Mack Butler, his dad was the football coach at Oklahoma State? Because I haven't seen that like publicly reported anywhere, except for some people have sent it to me, and maybe it's on the Facebook group. All right, listen up. Trigger warning.
10 o'clock, a lot of people are upset tonight after learning a Stillwater teenager pled no contest to several counts of rape and strangulation, only to be sentenced to a year of counseling and no jail time. Thanks for joining us. I'm Craig Day.
And I'm Lori Fulbright. Jesse Butler was charged as a youthful offender after two different girls reported he sexually assaulted them repeatedly and threatened to hurt them if they told. News on 6's Chloe Abbott is live with more on the case for us. Chloe.
Craig and Lori, we're calling the victims Jane and Sarah. In Jane's victim impact statement, she says she wasn't only abused and strangled by Jesse Butler, but doctors told her she was 30 seconds away from dying when he strangled her. She says even though she survived, the abuse haunts her and she will never be the same.
An affidavit says the first victim, Jane, dated Jesse Butler for about 3 months starting in.
There he is. Come take a look at Jesse Butler showing up to court with his big old sunglasses on, looking like a thug. This is a monster. This is in Payne County, Payne County, Oklahoma.
January of 2024 when he was 17. She says he repeatedly raped and tried to rape her and would strangle her if she refused. She says she had to get surgery on her neck after being strangled, and her
surgery on her neck after being strangled. Look at the scars on this girl. I'm sorry, are you kidding me? Yeah, this is Stillwater, right? The kid lived in Stillwater.
Scar will remind her of the violence she suffered for the rest of her life. She says he threatened to kill her and her family if she ever told anyone. Another affidavit says in March of the same year, Butler started dating the second victim, Sarah, and the relationship lasted for about 6 months. Sarah said Butler was aggressive and violent, and she went along with his sexual advances in order to avoid being hurt. She says he strangled her when she refused, and Butler even videotaped him strangling her until she passed out, and police found the video on his phone. Sarah's mother told the judge
He had a video of it on his phone. He had a video of it on his phone. Let's hear that again. Yeah, Ashley Banfield has been covering this heavily. I haven't watched her coverage. Is she outraged too? This is outrageous. They found a video on his phone. Look at this piece of I usually don't curse on the channel. I'm not going to, but look at this. No ramifications for his behavior. Do you think he's going to change? Do you think with a year of counseling, he's going to be rehabilitated and he's never going to hurt a woman again? I got to hear that part about the video on his phone.
dating the second victim, Sarah, and the relationship lasted for about 6 months. Sarah said Butler was aggressive and violent, and she went along with his sexual advances in order to avoid being hurt. She says he strangled her when she refused, and Butler even videotaped him strangling her until she passed out, and police found the video on his phone. Sarah's mother.
Okay, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, you don't have to agree with me, this is a case that deserves the death penalty. Because you know what? Who gets the death penalty? Those two girls. Do you think those two girls are ever going to live a normal life after what happened to them? He was 17 years old. And they decided, at first they charged him as an adult, but then they decided, yeah, you know what? We're going to take that back. We're going to charge him as a kid. Remember what happened in Mississippi when 14-year-old Carly Gregg was tried as an adult and she was convicted and got life without ever having the possibility of parole at 14 years old? This is the kind of case that deserves the death penalty. You choke a girl so hard, her doctors say she was 30 seconds away from death. She has to have surgery on her neck. She's lucky she's not dead. And you know what? We're just going to give you a year of counseling. Are you kidding me? Outrageous.
Told the judge Butler manipulated Sarah and violated her safety, trust, and innocence. The judge sentenced Butler to be in prison, but if he follows the counseling plan created by the Office of Juvenile Affairs for the next year until he turns 19, he will never go to prison. If he breaks the law before then, he could have to serve some time.
Oh, can he stay at jail for a year? So the judge actually sentenced him to 10 years, but you're not going to really do the 10 years if you can do the year of counseling. Sydney Collins says the Butler family has power. Yeah, we will definitely be covering his trial after he does it again. He's a repeat offender already. He's 19 now, right? But he was 17 at the time, I think. What are we doing? Where's the justice for these girls?
Butler's attorney, his mother, and the Payne County District Attorney's Office for a statement, and I haven't heard back yet. The judge on this case told me no comment. Jane's family says the victims were let down by a system that favors the offender over the victim, and the courts need to do better.
All right, Chloe, thank you. Butler will be back in court in December so the judge can see if he is following his requirement.
Oh, okay. Well, let's make him come back in December. Make sure he's he hasn't done it to anybody else. And were these his first two victims? What do you think? I'm horrified. I'm so outraged by this. Here's another story from KOCO about the outrage in the community. But I have to sit through the commercial again. So just give me a second.
The system failed them and they want harsher penalties. Butler's staff.
Wait, hold on.
Hey guys, families of the victims say the system failed them and they want harsher penalties. Butler's status was changed to youthful offender. Those incidents happened before he turned 18. New court documents shed light on how a teenager charged as an adult in March is now charged as a youthful offender after charges of rape, sexual battery, and domestic assault and battery by strangulation. Jesse Butler, who is now 18 years old, pleaded no contest to the 11 charges against him, which means he neither admits nor disputes the charges. During the incidents of abuse, Butler was enrolled in Stillwater Public Schools, and court documents include victim impact statements. One of them said, quote, "I've had to explain bruises, explain silence, explain why I started isolating from people who love me. You didn't just strangle me with your hands. You strangled my voice, my joy, my ability to feel safe in my own body." That same girl even said Butler threatened to kill her if she ever told anyone what he was doing to her. We reached out to a mother of one of the victims, and she gave us a statement Wednesday saying in part, quote, "As a mom, I never thought I'd have to watch my daughter fight this kind of battle, one where she had to prove she was the victim over and over again, while the system made excuse after excuse for the person who hurt her. My daughter has handled this with more strength than most adults could. She still shows up to school, still cheers, still smiles, even when people who should have protected her didn't. Watching her stay brave while adults failed her has been both inspiring and heartbreaking." Here's what was ultimately decided in the case. According to the Oklahoma State Courts Network, Butler will remain subject to the sentence pronounced on August 25th this year, which was 10 years. But that is pending his compliance or non-compliance with the Youthful Offender Rehabilitation Plan. The court extended jurisdiction to Butler's 19th birthday. He is now under and subject to the oversight of the Office of Juvenile Affairs, pending his compliance or non-compliance with the orders of the court. Now, Butler's next court appearance will be December 8th up in Payne County. In Oklahoma City, Jason Berger, KOCO 5 News.
What are we doing? What are we doing here? Welcome to Oklahoma. Both parents worked at OSU. Muzzy says the world has gone crazy. She can see it all the way from down under. And Shazza says he violated a victim's protective order during the sentencing. And there's a videotape of him committing the crime. Are you kidding? If you have no sound, you go out of the stream and come back in. Darius says 100% there are more victims. He started getting bolder with the video, and I'm sure there were signs that the parents chose to ignore. Lisa says, no, clearly it's making him even more arrogant. This only gets worse over time. If he's beating and strangling, video recording his crimes, raping underage girls, this is a murderous psychopath. Murder Mitten says he's an athlete and the judge has ties to college athletics. Oh, now the picture is becoming a little bit clearer, right? All of the court documents are sealed. I couldn't get a hold of the court file the same way I can get a hold of Tifany Adams and Paul Grice's pleadings and court filings. Can't get them for Jesse Mack Butler. The most horrifying thing is he will do it again, but will escalate, says JoJo. Right. Right. And Not So Zen Jen says this is why women don't go to the police. These women, girls, are given a life sentence. And this kid, we'll sentence him to 10 years. But you know what? If he's good for a year, goes to counseling, because, you know, counseling's going to fix his problems. He doesn't have to do any time. He doesn't have to do any time. No big whoop. No biggie. But apparently there's going to be a rally November 5th for people who are outraged in Oklahoma. I don't know if anybody here is boots on the ground there. Payne County, Oklahoma. Felicia says, right, so the judge wouldn't want to jeopardize a potential athletic scholarship for him at the cost of what two girls say happened. So sick and so messed up, believe victims. Marianne says it's worse than Massachusetts. Just Steph says, future girls might die because of this. Good for the community, says Dana. I'm outraged. See if anybody sent me anything about the standout. Let me see. Oh, okay. Thank you, Zeta, for sending this to me. Well, here's the dad, apparently. I guess the dad is Matt Butler, and this is 2 years ago. Wait, his father is the assistant athletic director for Stillwater Public Schools? Can we confirm that this is the dad? Here's a speech that he gave at the Stillwater Frontier Rotary Club. Let's just, I mean, it's 30 minutes long. We're not going to watch the whole thing because we got to pivot over at 11:30 to the next topic of the day. But thank you, Zeta4, for sending me all of these articles. Yeah, so in 2022, Mack Butler was hired as the assistant athletic director for Stillwater Public Schools. Let's get a look at this guy.
Okay. To have Mack Butler, not Matt Butler, Mack Butler, who is the assistant athletic director at Stillwater Public Schools, which is his retirement job. You may remember him as having served 16 years as the director of football operations for OSU.
Oh,
in the midst of that, he went to
16 years he was with OSU in the football program. And now this is his retirement job. He's the athletic director at Stillwater Public Schools.
LSU and did that for 4 years as well. His retirement job. You may remember him as having served 16 years as the director of football operations for OSU. And in the midst of that, he went to LSU and did that for 4 years as well. He has lots of great experiences. He probably will tell us some OSU stories as well as some Stillwater school stories. But Mack, we're glad you're here today. Welcome.
Wow. He was also at LSU
Thank you
and
for
Tulsa.
the invite. This is, I enjoy doing this. I do have stories to tell. I am not bashful and I can speak really well. So if there's a reason behind this, some of you that know me, I was a college football coach. And if you were ever going to communicate across the corner on to the other side, because I coached the DBs, you had to be able to project to him to say, back up. So anyway,
I have so many questions.
If you can't hear me, let me know, or if I'm too loud, I know you'll be able to. In fact, most of the time, I tell people I'm not even going to stand here because I want to get close enough to you to visit with you. So,
I mean, my mouth is just hanging open at this point. I'm just catching flies. Your son's a rapist. He nearly murdered a girl. She was 30 seconds away from death. And apparently this boy has never had any ramifications for his behavior, and he never will. Wow. You can find that video if you'd like to watch the whole thing. The speech by this father of this predator who's getting away with attempted murder or near murder. Stillwater Frontier Rotary Club. It's under their YouTube channel. It only has 68 views, so go on over there. Comments are turned off. Surprise, surprise. Thanks, Anna, who just sent me something about the judge. Oh, here's the judge. Payne County, Oklahoma. Payne. Susan Worthington, Special District Judge, Logan County Courthouse, Guthrie, Oklahoma. Anna, you sent me two of the same link. You sent me another link that this is her father, but it's the same link that you sent for the judge. Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns. I have all of the concerns and all of the questions and the comments and the outrage, and this is outrageous. Oh, Alex, here's what you missed. She says, what did I miss? My brother's a bigwig at OSU. Well, here's what you missed. This guy, hold on. This kid, Jesse Mack Butler, 17 years old, Stillwater Public Schools, son of Mack Butler, who was either the coach or high up at OSU football program. Graped two girls many, 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 many times. Here's a picture of them. Here he is, because that's how he shows up to court with his sunglasses on. Pled no contest, which is like a guilty plea, meaning that he's going to be sentenced to graping and strangling two girls so many times, forcibly videotaping one of them. One of the girls was 30 seconds from death, had to have a neck surgery. The judge sentenced him. First, he was charged as an adult. And then they said, well, you know what? He was 17 at the time that he committed these brutal crimes. So, you know, we're going to sentence him as a youthful offender. We're going to give him 10 years. But if he does a year of counseling, we're going to dismiss everything for him. And the people of Payne County are outraged, and so am I. That's horrific. Suzanne, I don't know if you're here, but you sent me something about a standout on November 5th, but I don't have any further information on it. Oh, thank you. And so the Judge Worthington's dad was also a judge, apparently. And he died at 95 years old back then and back there in 2022. It's like good old boy country, right? Is this like good old boy country? Longtime Logan County judge died at 95. That's Susan Worthington's dad. One of Oklahoma's most visible and respected attorneys and judges passed last week. That was 2022. The former district judge of Payne and Logan counties was 95 years old. Oh, yeah. A lot of ties here. A lot of ties. Powerful people can get away with attempted murder. Yeah, Payne County is like the low county in Murdoch, says Shazabee. That's what it expected. That's horrific. Banfield's been covering it extensively, but I thought I'd bring it to your attention because many of you might not have seen it. Unreal. Tina says, absolutely good old boy country. I lived there. Lived there for a while, helping on my uncle's ranch, and I'd go on a party. Go to a party like a keg party. Boys would be on one side, arm wrestling, and girls would just sit there. Yeah, maybe we should be looking at the DA also. It says Law Tube's most hated mod, but it was the judge that was in charge of the sentencing, right? Got to dig into it a little bit more, but it's horrific and it's disturbing. And this whole entire stream has been disturbing, but we will continue to cover. In the meantime, Linda says, yeah, you bet somebody's going to die by his hands because he thinks he can just get away with everything. Want to put hands on somebody, they think they can get away with it forever. Yeah, this is not really big punishment. Not really a big punishment. So I'll dig into this a little bit more. We're coming back at 11:30. I'm going to teleport you over there. You don't need to do anything except buckle your seatbelt, go get a snack, some popcorn, so we can talk about all of the fallout from Michael Proctor in Massachusetts, telling us that I would call that attempted murder. Outrageous case. Outrageous. I can't even get the documents. I'm going to try and get them before next time because this really outrages me. Super sticker. On top, thank you for your super sticker. This is just another example of a good old boy getting no ramifications for his behavior and being allowed to go unchecked, because you can bet your ass, as you know, a restraining order is a piece of paper. It's a piece of paper. It means nothing to these people. Absolutely nothing. All right, please smash the like button on your way out. Smash the like button on your way into the next stream. When I hit end on this stream, it should actually just teleport you right over to the next stream. So I will see you over there in about, I don't know, 13 minutes or so. It's set for 11:30. So in the meantime, you know, stay cool, stay kind, stay classy. Please join us for the second stream because we got a lot of stuff to go over because the chips keep falling. And see you over there. Stay cool, stay kind, stay classy. Do all the things. Safe travels in 3, 2, 1.